Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5-ish here on Monday, March 21st, 2016. I am Dave Biddle, very happy to be joined by Bucknuts columnist Brandon Castel. BCast, good morning to you. Thank you for your time.
Hey, Dave. Good morning to you. Thanks for having me on, bud.
Always a pleasure. Before we get to football, what most people want to hear about, let's talk a little Ohio State basketball. What I would consider a listless 74-66 loss to Florida in the second round of the NIT. Yesterday, they just did not bring much energy to the court, and the start of the game hurt them, and then the start of the second half hurt them. You take those away, maybe they would have won the game. They just didn't have the energy to start the game and then to start the second half. So the Buckeyes finished their season 21-14. I don't think Thad Matta's probably too disappointed this season's over. Brandon, ugly final game of the season, of course, but the good news here is that afterward, Jaquan Lyle and the rest of the players said they're definitely coming back next year. I know people will say, well, where were they going to go? But I just remind everybody of Quentin Ross 2 years ago. He wasn't even projected as a second-round pick, and he left, and, he wasn't even a second-round pick. So you just never know with these guys. There were some rumors that Jaquan Lyle might just want to go play in Europe. So it's good to know, at least for now, that these guys are all saying they're going to come back next year. So talk about that and also just about the loss to Florida.
Yeah, that's a great point. And, I was actually sitting down to write my weekly column, and I was focusing it around this hoops team, the game yesterday, and then kind of going forward, what does this team look like? So kind of had to rewrite a little bit of it because there was some of the talk that Lyle might be looking to make the jump, that he might not want to be a part of the college game. So I think that was encouraging. Like you said, where was he going to go? In my mind, I think he is a guy, and I think we've said this before about some guys that maybe had potential but didn't look like they were NBA ready. I just felt like this is a guy who really needed another year at the college level, and could become a really good NBA prospect. It's not like you're looking at a kid in Quentin Ross who ended up going overseas and doing a lot of that stuff. I think Jaquan Lyle, if he can get some of his mechanics down, if he can be a little less sloppy with the basketball, he's got the size, he's got the quickness. When he's got the ball in his hands, he can do some things with it. So I think there's some potential there. But, you look at his season numbers. This is a guy who shot under 40% from the floor and just over 25% from three. Those aren't numbers that are going to get you, to the NBA. He shot 70% from the free throw line. So, no, he's a rookie. He's a freshman. And so I think there were times where we saw flashes of brilliance, times where he looked like a guy who could really take over and dominate a game. And then there were times where, you were frustrated with, wondering what in the world was going on with him. So I think it's encouraging that he's coming back. I think if you look at just the box score, he's a guy who's going to fill up the box score at times like he did yesterday, 19 points, 11 rebounds in that game. But he was 7 of 16 shooting, 1 of 6 behind the arc, turned the ball over 5 times. So to me, that's a guy that they've got to build around. They've got to get him to take the next level. But they're only going to be as strong as he is. So I look at that game yesterday, and it really didn't have the energy. You're relying on a lot of guys to play a lot of minutes that they weren't relying on before earlier in the season. So without Tate, without Bates, Diop, that really looking at some guys to step up. You can look at Lyle played 38 minutes. Cam Williams played 37. He missed all 5 of his threes. Really there's not much you can do in that case. There's not much Thad could do to kind of tweak things and really push the envelope with this team. Good news is Mark Loving played really well in that game, and I don't think Thad's the only one that's happy this season is over. I think there's a lot of eyes looking to the future for this team.
Yeah, no question about it. I will say 2 guys who really brought a lot of energy, Daniel Giddens and A.J. Harris, a couple of freshmen that, A.J. Harris looks like he is shot out of a cannon sometimes on the fast break, and Daniel Giddens just such a good shot blocker. He's so raw offensively, but I think he's going to get there. He's got a pretty good stroke when he has his mid-range jumper. Wasn't there this year, but I think he's going to develop into okay offensively, and he is a force, defensively and on the glass. So I think, and he plays with a lot of toughness. He's very athletic, really like Daniel Giddens and A.J. Harris. I think those guys, if people are patient, I think down the line those guys can be very good players. So very bullish on the Buckeyes in 2016, 2017, but it was a disappointing season this year. All right, switching gears, I know everybody wants to talk football, so let's do that. After a 11-day hiatus, Ohio State will resume spring football tomorrow. Tuesday morning, 8:30, 8:30 till 11 is practice, and the first hour, 8:30 till 9:30 a.m., is open to the media. Brandon and I will be there covering it. Then we will be interviewing Urban Meyer afterwards. Brandon, you're coming down to cover it with me. What are some of the main storylines you'll be following on Tuesday?
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I mean, 11 days off, it feels like we were kind of in the midst of things, and then, kind of been a dry period here, kind of a dark out period. So it'll be good to get back out there on the practice field, good to kind of see the guys running around. I don't get too caught up in some of the spring storylines. I just think there's so much that they're trying to do between now and the start of fall camp that really when you get into the start of fall camp is when I start to focus in on specifics. But I know we get to speak to Kerry Combs, we get to speak to Zach Smith this week. And, one of the things that I'm consistently looking at on this team is just all the guys they lost offensively. And where are those kind of playmakers going to step up? Where are those guys going to come from? The running back battle with Briante Dunn and Mike Weber. You can't really tell, again, a lot early in spring. And, when you're really not getting into the full physicality, you're really not going to see Mike Weber running guys over or anything like that. So, but it'll be interesting to see, how they give out the reps, what these guys look like, and then really where I'd like to see is kind of the wide receivers. I think that's a very interesting position, and I'll be interested to see not only what they look like, but also kind of what Zach Smith has to say, because they lose their top three guys from last year, really, with Michael Thomas and Jalen Marshall and Braxton Miller, and then their three replacements are all out for the spring in Noah Brown and Corey Smith and Curtis Samuel. So really a lot of opportunity for some of these younger guys like a Torrance Gibson, like an Austin Mack, like Johnny Dixon. Really a lot of opportunity for these guys to jump in there and maybe catch the coach's eye, maybe make some big impressions in the spring. So very interested to see that. And then, where I always end up finding focusing a lot of my attention is on really the offensive and defensive line. You can't tell a lot when it's not full go, but I like to see how those battles shake out, especially on the edge. When you've got pass rushers and you've got, some of the Jalen Holmes and Sam Hubbards going up against, really what's going to be a very young tackle position for Ohio State this year. I really want to see Prince, Jamarco Jones, whoever's going to be in the mix at those tackle spots, how they can hold up against the pass rush consistently in practice. I think you can kind of spot some of those guys early in spring who are making plays.
BCAS, you hit on a hot button topic there. Where are the playmakers going to come from this year? And just curious to get your take on this. Are you confident that enough will step up, whether it's Curtis Samuel, Mike Weber, Paris Campbell, Johnny Dixon, Torrance Gibson, Austin Mack, that enough guys will step up, or we just don't know who yet? Or do you think it's a concern that maybe not enough playmakers will step up this fall?
Well, that's a good question, and I would say right now I'm not concerned, but I guess I'm holding back my optimism because I think a lot of this is based on, okay, we've heard a lot about these guys, but we really haven't seen any of them. We really haven't seen, really any of the guys who are in the mix here, other than maybe Corey Smith, who's played a little bit, but really we haven't seen much from him. We really haven't seen anything from any of these guys. You go on down the list to the Paris Campbells, the KJ Hills. You really look at Marcus Baugh at tight end. We haven't seen these guys in action. We've heard a lot of their teammates talk about them. We've heard a lot of guys talk about Noah Brown and how dominant Noah Brown was in the fall last year, but I've never seen Noah Brown play in a football game where he went out there and made plays at the college level. So I think there's a little bit of, hesitation on my part to jump all in and say, you know what, Mike Weber is going to come out there and dominate if he becomes the starting running back. I saw Ezekiel Elliott do that the last 2 seasons. He was a dominant running back, and Ohio State fed off of that. And I think, I do believe that one of those guys, and I think I'm a big Mike Weber fan, I think he will probably emerge as the go-to guy. It just seems to make a lot of sense. And they went out and recruited really well. Urban Meyer knows how to find these guys. Him and, Coach Mick, they know how to get these guys ready. So I have a lot of faith that they have the talent. It's just time. It's really just timing. How long will it take these guys to get up to speed? Now, the good news, and I think the biggest reason for optimism is JT Barrett, and you've got the guy at the spot that is the most important and most critical spot, and he can make everyone else look good. If they can find openings, JT Barrett can make them look good by getting the ball into their hands, by making good decisions with the football. So to me, that is the most important thing that this team has going into the fall, is they have the guy who knows how to make all these other guys look good.
Great stuff, Brandon. Thank you very much for your time.
Absolutely, Dave. Anytime.